Salutations, Globed Sheeple. Welcome to MetaSheep Slaughterhouse. I'm your host, Dr. Cancer MD, here with another filthy, revolting conglomeration of cancerous cardboard. Today I got my classic pure Horus stun. The Horus King is back. The last video I did on this was my buddy Rars getting third place at the last Detroit Regional with a very, very similar deck list to mine. And today I just want to show you my revamped one for the new format. This one I was able to get first place at a 7 or 8 round case tournament with, and it was a ton of fun, and in the meantime, I've played a few more events with it. I've changed up the list a little bit. Basically, this is going to be the final list I play going forward if I take this to any other big events or smaller events, obviously. So without any further ado, here we go. We got triple copies of Msetti, not much to say. Discard 2, draw, and search King Sark, and he's Dingirsu when you trigger him on field. We got one Happy, still the best one. One Dwamatef, still the second best one, and one Kebes whatever, still the worst one. But actually this one gets a little bit better because if your opponent triggers his effect, they cannot attack anything you control, and therefore Tenpai kind of just gets smacked by this card. So this one's actually quite good against Tenpai. Draws a bunch of cards, still draws 4 or 5 cards. People don't know what it does, they trigger that. I draw a bunch of hand traps, and this one's still insane. The flexibility, add 2 from graveyard or banished, including face down banished, to your hand or shuffle them into the deck. That's just ridiculous. And the other reason that I like this card so much is because it synergizes perfectly with Pot of Desires, which last time I posted this profile, everybody was fighting me saying Desires was bad, but this card synergizes perfectly with that card, which I'll explain in a second. Then we got Triple Planet Pathfinder. This is just needed for more consistency. The deck now has like 12 or 13 starters with this card. This card, unfortunately, is a bit of a choke point if it gets imperm, but sometimes you can just bait interruptions that way. It's just a necessary consistency piece. And then we got the triple Fenrir. Fenrir is, in my opinion, mandatory in this deck. It's a body going first for more interruption. Same with going second. It's very good into boards. And then also very importantly, it provides discard fodder for your Horus engine. Gotta love Fenrir. Then we got some hand traps. Got triple Ash Blossom, triple Ogre, because it just is very impactful right now. It's good against Snake Eyes if you hit the Appaloosa or the IP/SP. It's good into the Temple if you have Nib or something. It's good into all kinds of Rogue, including Tenpai. So I decided to max out on the Ogre just because it seems very impactful right now. I played 2 Nibiru. I wanted to play 3 of this, but I had to cut things down to make room for Planet Pathfinder and then also stay at 40. So I cut Nib down to 2. I'm a little iffy on that. He's a hand trap I usually want to play at 3. We'll see how it goes. I might move Ogre to 2 and Nib to 3, something like that. Then I also played 2 Valor. Wanted to get a good variety going, and Valor is it's just bad against Tenpai. It's good against almost everything else. And then triple copies of Imperm was the last hand trap. So we got 13 hand traps in here. A lot of people think you can't play or shouldn't play hand traps in Horus Stun, but that's just wrong. You want to be able to draw into these when you trigger your Dwamatef, and then just not losing going second. Not auto-losing to a big board when you go second is really nice. Otherwise, stun decks kind of struggle with that. You know, Runic Stun obviously can't really play hand traps at all, but this deck definitely can, which is a huge advantage it has over Runic Stun. Then we stay in line, Chris Hansen. Then we got triple copies of the Field Spell and 1 Terraforming, more consistency. This card is really, really bad and good at the same time. Makes you go super neg, but it is also a starter, and that's needed in the deck. Then we play 3 copies of the King Sark. This card's insane. A lot of people forget that this applies protection to all your monsters. They cannot be hit with stuff like Dark Hole, Regeki, whatever. You have to target them if you want to destroy them. It's a 4 times per turn discard to Foolish Burial, a Horus card, and then also it's Dingirsu in the damage step to send something. Really crazy card. You got to play 3 of it. The biggest issue with this deck and why I've been leaning towards playing Runic Stun more is because Ogre being in the format also hurts this deck a lot. This card getting ogred is very, very, very rough. It's not always going to be the end of the world, but a lot of times it's very severe to get hit with Ogre on that. So I've been leaning towards Runic Stun because even though Ogre hurts that deck, you still can like hug and protect and chain block fountain, stuff like that. This deck still might be better though just because it can play hand traps. Like that's such a huge advantage. And then the card that everybody thinks is bad, and I'm going to get like a million arguments in the comments for, Triple Desires. If you play 2 of this, you're just mathematically wrong. If you play 1 of this, you're wrong. If you're afraid to play this, like people were telling me on the last time I posted a Horus deck profile, I should play Prosperity. Clearly you've never played Horus because you turn off Msetti's draw. I think you can still use Msetti, maybe? I'm not even sure you can still use him because of the draw, but I think it's optional, so I think you can still use him, but it's just so bad because you cut off your +1, and this deck is often starving for discard fodder. a lot of times you only have enough discard fodder to end on 1 or 2 Horus monsters. So you're telling me to play Prosperity and cut out a crucial replenishing of advantage in the form of Msetti's Draw, where I could just be activating Desires and get a free +1, not restrict myself from drawing at all. And like I said, this synergizes with Happy. That's one of the strongest synergies in this deck, is the synergy this card has with Happy. You banish 10 random cards from your deck, you're probably going to hit like a Nib in there, an Ogre, Droll, or well, Veiler, something like that. And then when your opponent triggers Happy, you can add face-down cards to hand. So you just add a Nib, and then your opponent summons a 5th time, or they've already summoned 5 times when they trigger Happy. Or if you add an Ogre to hand, and it's just so crazy. Being able to add face-down banish hand traps for free value. Like, it's so good. How could you ever think Desires is bad? In general, I don't know, but in here, you're definitely smoking crack. 1 copy of Call By, because we got to stop Ash on that Msetti. Pretty crucial. And I have triple Skill Drain and 1 TC Boo. This is a stun deck. These are stun cards. You can play around both of these cards effortlessly. The differences I've said before between this deck and Runic Stun is Runic Stun is all about protecting your floodgates. You get to protect them from being destroyed by using Huggin. You can protect some face-down cards from being targeted by Munin, blah, blah, blah. This deck is different. You don't protect your floodgates, but you dare your opponent to out them, and if they do out them, you go extra plus off the Horus monsters. Just add this right back if you want it. You draw a bunch of cards. It's less about protecting the castle and more about saying, okay, you broke the floodgate, but now you're just going to get drowned in card advantage, so have fun with that. Then extra deck, 1 SP. You don't really need to play it, but it does come up, obviously. It's SP. 1 World Gears. I am the guy who originated this tech card in Horus. I will be taking my credit. Thank you very much. Anyone who going forward who plays this card, you're welcome. Bragging aside, this card's insane. If you don't know what it does, it's 3,500 unaffected by monster effects. You use any 3 level 5 or higher monsters, and then if you use things of 3 different attributes, which the Horus monsters are, you get to activate the effect to blow up every card on the field. And if you have your other Horus monsters up and King Sark, only the King Sark will get destroyed because it'll protect all the Horus monsters. Then you just go for game. This card's really, really good. It's the spice, and I'm very proud that this card now has a regional top thanks to my buddy Rars. Got 3rd place with that in his extra deck. Then I got the 1 Underworld Goddess, just because Pearly Towers and Blackwing Towers, stuff like that. Sometimes they'll let you summon the 4 bodies before they interact with you, and then if they let you get to those 4 Horus bodies, you just link it off and then out the towers that way. Sometimes they won't see it coming. Ding in the rank 8 department. This is probably the best rank 8. Comes up all the time. Just free send, non-targeting, and it protects your board from Duster or Regeki, whatever. Ding is so good. Photon Lord. I don't really make this one that often, but occasionally it comes up if you just absolutely need a monster negate. Garunix succeeds. This card's Dark Hole plus MST. Gains some attack, I guess, but who cares? But it's Dark Hole plus MST. It's insane board breaker. Sanafon the Sky Prison. This is the best card in a Horus Mirror. Whoever gets to this card first and doesn't get impermed on it wins. And most Horus builds don't play hand traps, so I'm probably going to imperm this if you get to it. And you're going to let me get to it without imperming me. And then also, if you know for a fact you're going against like a fire deck, you can make this blind first. But as I've said in my previous Horus videos, the best board to make in this deck is just leave the Horus monsters themselves on the field. People still don't get this. People are still playing where they make Hope Harbinger and they make Photon Lord and they try to pass on these rank 8s, and then they get Typhoned and just your board broken and you don't get anything in return for it. But if you end on just the Horus monsters, they can't break your board without triggering all the Horus monsters and giving you a ton of card advantage. So if you take away nothing else from this video on Horus Stun, leave the Horus monsters on the field. It is your best possible end board, unless you're playing against fire, in which case, sure, make that. But generically speaking, blind first, you should just do what I'm saying. Then I got some spice. This is the spice. No one's figured this one out. I guarantee it, because I have not seen this in any profiles. Spriggan's Ship X Blower. This card is a 2-for-1 removal. It can hit back row and front row as long as the cards are adjacent to each other. So basically, your opponent has 2 cards here. You can target the one right there, and it'll blow up both of them. So you can also do it like they have a back row and a monster. You target the back row, blows up the back row and the monster. It's like an alternative to Ding, but more for back row decks, because I was finding myself needing a card that removed more than one piece of something on the board, and this card's very effective at doing that. It's not a quick effect, of course, but it's like a Ding that hits more than just one card. So this is what I would go into against back row decks. And the other effect this card has is it's kind of like a time thief for Doer. It can like tag itself out. There's no other way you can get material on it, but I guess if your opponent tries to remove it, you could tag it out and just have a beater. but it's mainly there for backer removal, and yeah, that's the spice. You heard it here, Metasheep Slaughterhouse. Then we got the Numeron Dragon, Draglubion, Hope Harbinger package. This is for negating spells, but really it's just a OTK. This whole package is just instant OTK. It's very good. All you need is two level 8s on board, and you have lethal if your opponent doesn't have anything. I added Lancelot. This card is to help me make Zeus, #1, and it's actually an Omni Negate too. So if you have like no more plays left to make, and your opponent has like 1 card in hand or something, you can make this and then just not activate any effects. And then the first thing they do, if it's 1 or 2 cards in their hand, is going to be negated. So it's kind of a weird Omni Negate, but it's also able to attack directly. And I believe it can pop something when it deals damage or something like that. So I was able to force out a few interactions by threatening this in the battle phase. And then also I wanted a card for the Horus Mirror. And this is the best card for the mirror because it lets you go into Zeus without triggering the King Sark effect to send. So you can just attack directly, make Zeus, overlay, and then wipe the board. And Zeus is one of the best outs to the Horus board because, again, it gets around the protection of King Sark and it doesn't trigger any of the Horus monsters, and it gets rid of the sarcophagus. So otherwise the mirror can feel impossible because all your outs are just going to trigger their monsters. So if they go first, you're kind of screwed. Make 1 Zeus here. Obviously, we got so many seizes. 1 Typhon, the best freaking stun card ever. Just overlay this card on top of Ash that you normal summoned and then set Skill Drain, and boom, you're back in the game. And then the last card in the extra deck is Pep, Psychic End Punisher. This card's kind of like a Barone replacement because we used to go, normal or special Fender, normal Ash, and make Barone. Well, now we do special Horus Monster, normal Ash, and make Psychic End Punisher. And this is like a comeback card. If you're low on light points, you can, get ahead and swing at your opponent and have an unaffected beat stick. So I haven't really tested out with it that much yet, but we needed some kind of Barone replacement. Then we got in the side deck Triple Ghost Bell. This is mostly here for lab, but just anything where Bell performs, it's needed for extra coverage, I think. Belling Ostinato is really cool too. We got Triple Cosmic for the mirror. When you go first, you just Cosmic the King Sark or Runic. Don't want to lose to Runic Stun because they can, if they get Fountain set up and Skill Drain, they can probably play under Skill Drain a little bit better than you can. In fact, they definitely can. So you need to hit Cosmic on their Fountain. Triple Evenly, I thought about main decking this, but I think this deck goes second and OTKs well enough that I could regulate this to the side. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to draw into it off of Domatef either, so evenly on the side. We got triple copies of Judgment because it's Judgment and evenly cooks this deck. And we're still on 3 Secret Village. Rars really likes Heatwave, but for some reason, he likes Heatwave because when you get shifted, he can Heatwave and skip the turn, and I think that's cool. I don't disagree that that's a good interaction, but for some reason, whenever I get shifted, I just win with this deck. I don't know if it's a common, drawing, Fenrir plus Skill Drain and hand traps, but for some reason, when people shifter me, I win 80% of the time, so I really don't understand why that is, but I try not to question it. I just play Secret Village, lock people out of their spells, because instead he's a spellcaster. And then that's the full deck, that's the full profile. I wanted to talk about this card, the Black Flame Deity, which I recently cut. I cut this card because it's a brick, and it can't really special itself from grave. If this card could special itself from grave, you'd certainly play it. And I do like this card. This card is mostly good under Skill Drain, or it's good in the mirror. It's good against a Runic Stun. I'm considering siding 1 copy of it for matches like that. But in the main deck, it's so freaking bricky, and I wanted to play 40 cards really badly, so I did end up cutting this card, but I may consider siding it at 1 just for those weird matchups, like I said. So, well, if you don't know what this card does at this point, you probably do, but it's like Dingirsu from your hand. You send a card on your hand or field to the grave when you have King Sark and a Horus monster, and the field spell also counts, and then you can non-target send any card on the field. So this is kind of insane under Skill Drain and, in the mirror. This really gives you an edge in the mirror, and then you can draw a card off the field spell when you trigger this card's effect. So that's the deck profile. Remember, Chris Hansen is always watching you. Don't be a globehead sheeple. I'm tired. I can't think of the rest of them. Good night.